Welcome back to our series of sitting down with all of the major candidates running for governor. And this week I have Dr. Shawn Wilson, the lone Democrat in the race. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be with you.
So, Shawn, I just want to dive right into it. A lot of people know who you are. You've worked for the state for a long time. Can you kind of reiterate the reasons why you decided to get into this race?
You know, after 25 years in state service, I realized that great things can happen when you have good leadership, and not so great things can happen when you have other kinds of leadership. I have a sense that we have become so extreme, and I looked at the field of candidates and saw that the divide that we have in our state in terms of partisanship and extreme politics that are covering most of the issues today that are not going to work to make us safer. They're not going to work to make us smarter, not healthier, nor will it make us wealthier. And those are the four things that I want to focus on. I want to build an economy. I want to build a workforce. I want to build an educational system. I want to build a state that's going to provide those opportunities for people to make sure that they're safe, that they're healthy, that they have an opportunity to be smarter and wealthier. And those are the four things that are driving me. Those are the things that are going to really turn the needle. I also know the importance of leadership in times of crisis, and having served as a state executive over the last 7+ years, and in the middle of a crisis today, with burning lands, thousands of acres on fire, I know how important it is to be present. And of all the candidates in the field, I didn't delegate that responsibility when I had an opportunity to serve and step up to protect the people of Louisiana. I actually served and did it. We were in communities, we've collaborated, we've partnered, and I've got a record of being bipartisan. And I think those are the things that are going to make the mark of an exceptional leader and move Louisiana forward. That is what people are most interested in as I travel, is how you're going to make this a better state. And that's what it's going to be. I'm going to work with any and everyone to make that happen.
And one of the ways that people really want to know how the state will be improved is through education. And the state's made a lot of major investments in the early childhood education and higher education. Yeah. With some changes to the revenue coming down the pike, how would you continue to pay for these investments?
Absolutely. So, making a firm investment in early childhood education is absolutely essential. And I would challenge you that we've done enough. We haven't done enough, because there are hundreds of young people who are going to go without because of the decisions that were made in the legislature that funded an unprecedented amount, but it was not as much as we could have funded. We know the need was far greater than what we've actually appropriated for that particular issue. So we'll make that a priority. We understand the importance of early childhood education, what it means to brain development, what it means to preparation for young people starting in kindergarten. I also know that we've made some decisions that are retroactive, or should I say are going to be proactive in a sense, but we're waiting too late. So take the issue of third graders, for example. Why wait until a third grader fails? We should be investing in first grade and second grade today to minimize the number of third graders. And you have to make sustainable investments to make that happen. You also have to fully fund higher education. If we don't do that, we will never have a workforce or an economy that's going to be built with innovation, where people can start jobs and become a part of the small business movement that can grow to be a large global business. Those are the things that we have to do. We have to invest in vocational education. We have to invest in trades. We have to look at apprenticeships, and we have to be smart in terms of investing in the jobs that are going to be here for the next 20 years, not the jobs that we've had for the last 20 years. Those are the things that we'll do, and we'll prioritize it. And I'm the only candidate that's committed to fully funding education. That is the first and most important thing we have to do to build an economy and build a workforce that we can be proud of.
And you're in favor of keeping the half-cent sales tax, right?
This is an opportunity for us to make investments. We know we have needs, whether it's public safety, whether it's education, whether it's infrastructure. Now is not the time to start to divest in the public wealth and the public infrastructure. It's time to invest and make those commitments. Instead of eliminating $500 million from the budget that we know we have today, I'm not suggesting we grow government. What I'm suggesting is we use that to address real needs. We also have to factor in that the legislature has made some decisions that are going to have an implication in future budgets, like funding $300 million out of the general fund into infrastructure. That's another $300 million that we're not going to have to fund other needs at the end of the day. And then when you look at the projections, we're a day away from a disaster. I mean, we have hurricane season every year. We understand those financial implications, and we know what that means. So yes, we should keep those dollars and make those investments. It's also an opportunity for us to be thoughtful in the long term in terms of what those tax structures are going to look like. What will transparency look like? How will we make long-term investments to not put us in a predicament where we're back to those general deficits that we saw in 2015? coming from a $2 billion deficit to a $2 billion surplus is a sign of progress. Let's take some of that revenue and make investments to pay teachers, to pay state employees, to pay police officers, to provide them with the equipment and the resources that they need to do their jobs. That is what the citizens are asking us to do.
Speaking of paying police officers, something that's really taken a big spotlight this election season is crime. And we've heard a lot of sound bites about it, but I would like to know very specific policies that you would want to see implemented right away.
So my campaign is not about sound bites, it's about solutions, sustainable solutions. And so you make investments like supplemental pay and working with police departments at the local level. I will work with the law enforcement and the justice community to partner with them. I'm not going to criticize them. That's not going to solve us. It's not going to make our communities safer. We're going to talk about how can we work together to provide them the resources. First and foremost, we've got to pay officers. We've got to make sure that every police department and sheriff's department and state trooper, that they have what they need to be safe and to do their jobs effectively. We have to make sure that there are enough of them on the streets. How many law enforcement agencies that we know of today in the state that are not fully staffed to meet the public need? Those are important factors. We've got to look at technology. You've got to look at how do you manage, not just in terms of the intervention, but what's happening on the prevention side. Are we investing in education? Are we investing in activities at the local level to keep juvenile offenders engaged in something productive? What are we doing in our public school systems in terms of providing counseling? Not necessarily student or school resource officers, but I'm talking about counselors to help young people deal with issues. How are you investing in mental health? How are you investing in addressing the unhoused issue that we see in communities that makes people unsafe? Those are the things that we need to be talking about, not looking at just locking people up. Building facilities is not going to make us safer because you're actually going to populate those facilities. My goal is to work to ensure that we can deal with these issues in a smart way, but to address these old problems with new solutions. Those are the things that we have to be sustainable about. Investing in reentry programs, because we know it reduces recidivism by more than 30 to 40% compared to general population violators. Those are things that we have to be thoughtful about. Locking them up, the crime has been committed. That is not the answer.
And already at the state legislature, some of the conservatives are talking about rolling back some of the criminal justice reforms that Governor John Bel Edwards really championed early on. How would you tackle that and have those conversations with conservatives in the state house?
Well, first, let me just tell you that those reforms were bipartisan. And I think we have to give it an opportunity to actually deliver the results. What we are a victim of in this state is after every time there's a party administration and a transition in administration, we spend time undoing it. And that's what I would call analysis paralysis. Let's figure out what's happening, give it an opportunity to work, and make those investments. When you look at what we've done in juvenile offenders, when you look at what we've done with general population offenders, we're seeing some progress in the general population. We've got to focus on juvenile offenders with some of those same types of solutions. That's where you're looking at juvenile assessment centers. That's where you're looking at things like reentry programs and partnering with folks who understand the facts and see what's out there to make meaningful results. Recognizing the fact that this is an issue that's been evolving over 8 years. And so this didn't happen overnight. It's not going to end overnight, but you've got to start with a bipartisan approach to dealing with real solutions. And let's not just talk about symptoms. Let's do something that's constitutional first and foremost. Let's make sure we are targeting a real problem and then make sure we can afford to do it and give it an opportunity to work. Those are things that we have to do. And I think working with individuals, regardless of their party, regardless of being urban or rural, they're going to have to deal with it. The other thing I'll tell you, Shannon, that we have to work with is fentanyl. That is an amazing issue that is hurting our communities, and it has no respect of person or party or geography. And so having a real sustainable investment in preventing further deaths, I think is super important, because in that space are all kinds of other secondary factors that are going to feed into the behaviors that we find in our juvenile justice or our criminal justice system.
And Mr. Wilson, you're a homeowner in Lafayette, correct?
Yes, I am.
And so many homeowners are dealing with the insurance crisis.
Absolutely.
And their premiums, I'm sure you've experienced yourself. So many other candidates have talked about having a special session for insurance.
Yeah.
Would you want to do the same?
Now, look, absolutely we can spend some time targeting that issue. I think you have to give the new insurance commissioner an opportunity to come to the table and lead, because that is his targeted responsibility. But I also have some issues of my own that I would address. One, this is an issue of competition. This is an issue of fairness, because it's not just homeowners insurance, it's reform for auto insurance, it's reform for flood insurance. On the flood insurance issue, we have to work with our congressional delegation. No candidate in this field of candidates has the relationship working with Republican and Democratic leadership in Washington. I also think it's it's important for us to recognize that in this issue of insurance, we are a high-risk market, no different than Florida or California, and we have to make sure we spread the pain of making sure that our people are protected. At the time of greatest needs, big insurance left us. They left Citizens to hold the bill here, and we have people who cannot afford to maintain their homes or even sell their homes because the people who are going to buy it can't afford the insurance. That is unacceptable, and it's going to hurt our economy, and it's going to eventually hurt the nation's economy if we don't have a comprehensive solution. And so I'm willing to call whatever special sessions we need to make real meaningful reforms. Take auto insurance, for example. Did you realize that you can have a good driving record with bad credit and pay nearly $1,000 more compared to someone who has a DWI and good credit? We need to change some of these backwards policies that are impacting everyday people and make sure that they can save dollars to make the investments that they want, to have the income that they need to do other things in our community, like afford a house, like get child care, like get health insurance. All of these things are out there, but we've got to start collectively, and I'm happy to work with Commissioner Temple to resolve some of those issues.
And the legislature earlier this year allocated the $45 million for the incentive fund.
Yeah.
Did you agree that that was a good move?
It was a necessary move because we waited too late. Shame on us for getting to the point that we have to incentivize someone to provide insurance when you have people who are paying insurance daily, insurance on the monthly basis or annually. We're paying it. We expect to get a return on that investment. That is not sustainable for us to do it every year, because I will tell you, the big insurance companies who are making billions of dollars off of the Louisiana taxpayers, they're going to be the ones who are going to come back next year and say, we need another incentive, and we need 10% more than what you gave last time, and that is not sustainable. So was it absolutely necessary as we approach this hurricane season, considering what we've been through in the last 3 years with Ida and Delta and Laura and all of those? Absolutely, we should have done that. But what's putting money in the pockets of the families? There are people still with blue roofs. There are people not back in their homes. There are people who are having to go to court to fight insurance companies to get returns on their investment, but we're having to incentivize them, and that is not going to be sustainable. So yes, it was necessary, but we should be smart and do something that's sustainable, because we cannot afford financially just to incentivize the insurance market here in our state. We need more competition, we need fair policies, and we need legislation to mandate some of those things to hold insurance companies accountable. And I'm going to be a governor that's going to make sure citizens get to have their fair share for what they put into protecting their homes and their property and their families.
And I want to turn a little bit to social issues. There was a few of them that really took the spotlight of this short fiscal session this year, specifically the LGBTQ issues.
Yes.
And I want to learn a little bit about your thoughts about them, starting with the ban on gender-affirming care for minors. What's your thoughts on overturning that veto?
Look, I think the governor made the right decision. I will tell you, I support parental rights. That is what this is fundamentally about. No one is going to know what's best for their children than their parents. Let's be consistent with that. We can't say we want you to have choice when it comes to school, but not when it comes to health and wellness of their children. And so I'm going to be a candidate that's going to support parental rights on the LGBTQ issue. I think you see people making arguments trying to pass legislation to create solutions for problems that don't exist. It's such a very small piece of our economy and our market that that bill was targeting. And I think when you look at the language in the bill, it does more damage in terms of young people that are in the process of having these types of care provided. And then doctors have already told us what it's going to do, that it's not the best approach, that we have more thoughtful solutions out there. Let's let doctors make the decisions that doctors were prepared and trained to do. Let's use real facts. Let's not use opinions. Let's not allow people to create their own facts. And so I support the governor's decision, but I also support parents to make those decisions for their children, like we do with schools, like we do with everything else that they care for. And
another bill that we know will be coming back is the state's version of the Don't Say Gay bill.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that bill?
Well, my thoughts are this. Let's let parents make those decisions. Teachers have been dealing with children that have had social issues since the very beginning of time. It's not as though we've had young people who have dealt with identity issues for the first time today. And look, we turned out pretty okay, I think, as a nation, as a country, that we've dealt with this. I think we've got too much bureaucracy placed on teachers. I think that is going to hamper them. Teachers are supposed to be there to nurture and educate and spend good, meaningful time with young people, loving on them, teaching them, educating them, making it work. That is what built our state. That's what's built our nation. Those are the types of teachers that I remember growing up with, people who cared about me as a person and did not have limitations about that, whether it was race, whether it was gender identity, whether it was socioeconomic status. Let's get out of that and let the teacher teach. That's not going to change the ability of a young person to be able to read. That's not going to help them do math better. That's not going to make them more competitive when it comes to accountability and testing. That's not going to guarantee them a job when they graduate. Those are the things that we have to prioritize, is what is the performance out there? Because if it doesn't make us safer, smarter, healthier, or wealthier, again, it doesn't really focus on the issues at hand. Those are the things that we need to talk about.
And Louisiana has one of the strictest abortion bans in the country, and there's been talks about adding exceptions for rape and incest. Would you sign a bill like that?
I do support exceptions, and I think there are more exceptions than rape and incest. I will tell you, I am personally pro-life, but over my 25 years, I have learned the importance of separating what I believe, what's good for me and my family, away from what's good for the public. And I believe that women ought to have that right to make a decision with a doctor. It ought not be the legislature that's determining those things. I think those issues are going to continue to permeate the debate. That's part of the extreme politics that are making women unhealthy, making them increasing the mortality rate for women across our state, and it's poorly implemented. The trigger laws are just not safe, and they're not protecting people. Again, let's let people make the decisions with those who are trained. It's not the legislature's decision or the governor's decision to legislate what you do with your body.
So would you identify yourself with your argument allowing the women to have choice, or would you rather just reform the current restrictions that we have?
Look, I think it's a transition. It's a spectrum of those issues. And so how I identify myself versus what the government should be doing for the masses of people. Remember, I am not dictating my beliefs on anyone else, whether they're religious beliefs or whether there's some other aspects of government. My job as governor is to provide a framework for you to be successful and achieve that. And I would suggest that the patients in our state, whether it's with cancer, diabetes, hepatitis, obesity, whatever it is, it's not the legislature's place to dictate what a doctor should do. That's a privacy issue between you and your doctor and anyone else that you choose to bring into that conversation. So what I call myself is irrelevant to the issue. Here's where we legislate. Here's where we govern. Here's how we lead. And let's not lead in these most extreme ways that we know is making us unsafe.
And looking back to the state legislature, we saw the budget passed in the last few minutes of the session, and there was the LDH money that was left out and a number of other issues. And while this kind of thing isn't exactly new to the legislature, it's really raised a lot of eyebrows. A lot of people are looking for answers to make sure that doesn't happen again. How would you handle a situation like that?
Listen, I think that speaks to a lack of transparency in the process. I think it's been done for years that way, and it's reckless. And we're seeing how important it is today because folks have started operating on the extreme. Taking $100 million could easily impact $700–800 million that touch people's lives. People's lives are at stake when we make those decisions. When you look at what we've done in infrastructure, for example, in terms of dredging the Mississippi River to 50 feet, under my term as secretary, we were able to achieve that. They've worked on that for 30+ years, and what do? We strip the money from the ports to be able to leverage that investment. That's reckless. That is hurting our economy. The budget process needs a little bit more discipline. It needs a little bit more transparency, and we need not rush to make those decisions. I think we have to be thoughtful. Citizens are frustrated with that because they see the impact when it touches them personally, and it's just a political process. And the idea that we can afford to put people's lives and their professions and their careers in jeopardy with legislative decisions, whether it's at the Bond Commission, that we've seen some really crazy things happen there. Let's be responsible leaders. Let's be good stewards of our resources. Let's do what we do, what parents and families do with the kitchen table when they balance their checkbooks and they make priority decisions. Let's make those kinds of decisions at the state level. That's what I'll do as governor. I'm not going to participate and play in that process because people's lives matter. The value of what people see in their system matters in that process, and we've got to do a better job with that.
Well, Mr. Wilson, I would like to give you just a couple more minutes to tell voters why they should pick you.
Well, listen, over my 25-year career working with Republicans and Democrats and independents, I've always led in a way that's been transparent, that's been effective, and that's been bipartisan. I'm the only candidate that can prove over the course of my career of creating a way when there was no way, cutting through the minutia, cutting through the BS that happens in the legislative process to get real results. Go look at the transportation system. You can't find any community where we haven't made a major impact. Are we where we want to be? Absolutely not. But are we better than where we were? I assure you, $5.5 billion later, 7,000 miles later, moving projects that are decades old finally to really get them done. That's the progress that people need in their states. I'm tired of the partisanship. I'm tired of the bickering. I'm tired of the extremism. And you've got a candidate who has proven himself working through this process. You've got a candidate who's worked with local government, rural and urban. You've got a candidate who is prepared academically for this, from having an undergraduate in planning, a master's in public administration, and a PhD in public policy, and 25 years of actual leadership. And so if you compared that record to the other candidates, clearly there's no other choice to make other than supporting WilsonForLA.com, because I am that candidate. I have done that, and I care about this state. I've passed up amazing opportunities to lead because public service has been my ministry. And so look at my record. Compare my record to those who are now presenting themselves as alternatives, as solution-oriented people when they're not. They're sound bites. Look at what they've been responsible for the last 7.5 years and determine if you're satisfied with the work that they've been assigned to do, and if that's reason to promote them. I think if you look at my record, you'll see the value of what I've offered and the reason to promote it. So visit us online at WilsonForLA.com. You can learn about my issues, my stance, my positions, my history, as well as accomplishments of this campaign. It's a great opportunity. We're excited to have the momentum building from all across the state, folks of different backgrounds, different communities, and we're looking forward to leading the state.
All right, Dr. Shawn Wilson, running for governor, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back.